if you recollect, like how we do audit, like generally how we plan the audits, Now until now what we understood is what is audit, what is the objective of audit, what is the scope of audit, why establishing terms of engagement is necessary, what are the ethical principles I should comply, what ultimately I should do in audit, we understood. Now how to do this audit is what we are going to discuss from now on. Procedural aspects we are going to discuss. Whatever we do in audit, we call that as what? Audit procedures. What is it called as? Audit procedures. These procedures are conceptually classified into two types. What are they? Risk assessment procedure, further audit procedures. Further audit procedures are again classified into two types: compliance procedure, substantive procedures. Substantive procedures are again two types: test of details, analytical procedures. Test of details and analytical procedures. How will I test details? By inquiry, by inspection, by external confirmation, by analytical procedure. Again, here also it will come analytical procedure. This is substantive analytical procedure. We'll discuss that later, don't worry. Analytical procedure, recalculation, reconfirmation, all that. Reperformance, getting it? Generally, reperformance is a technique which we use for compliance procedure. Reperformance is generally used for compliance procedure, reperformance. How we do risk assessment? We do risk assessment by inquiry, observation, and analytical procedure. Three methods were there. Here also observation will come, by the way. Here also observation will come. See, it is not something because they named it we are doing. Whatever we do, they named it. Suppose purchases, how will I verify? How purchases I will verify? I will look at the purchase bill. When you are looking at the purchase bill, it is called as a document. Inspection. You are looking at the document, right? It is called as what? Inspection. You got a doubt. You are asking the accountant or production manager. What is it called as? Inquiry. Now you asked him to take it to the go down also. To go down, you show me this is the latest purchase, show me where it is. And he's showing you. Observation. You are calculating the total amounts, whether the amounts mentioned in the purchase bill is correct or not. Recalculation. Understood? You are, in the go down, some inventory counting is going on. They said in one slot, after counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all that, they said some 29 items are there. You went and you're recounting it. Reperformance. What is it called as? Reperformance. You getting it? Logically, analytical procedure. What is analytical procedure? Suppose, this year, company has ordered totally 1,500 orders. But in accounts, in purchase register, only 1450 bills were there. 50 bills were missing. Analytically, you are analyzing and understanding. Further, repairs and maintenance expenditure is there. Suppose, best example you take, repairs and maintenance expenditure is there. Last year it is 1 crore. This year it is 3.5 crore. Why 3 times increased repairs and maintenance expenditure? But purchases have increased 10% only. Sales have increased 10% only. Every expenditure is just 10 to 20%. But repairs is increased by 250%. What happened? Suddenly, you investigated into it. You went to month-wise breakup. Suddenly in 1 month 2 crore is there. What, in 1 month 2 crore for repairs? You opened. Suddenly in 1 day 1.9 crore is there. In 1 day, how come 1.9 crore worth of repair will be there? You opened. One transaction is there. 1.9 crore worth of debit they made. When you look at the narration, it is a spare part purchase. It is what? Spare part which is purchased. When you apply recognition criteria under PP, it amounts to a capital expenditure. Company debited to P&L. Are you getting it? Now you see, how did you identify this? Is it through sampling? No. How did you identify this mistake? Analytical procedure. How did you found that this something is wrong in this? You observe the trend analysis. You saw the trend. This trend is unusual. Analytical procedure is nothing but what? Identifying unusual relationship. Analysis of ratios, analysis of analysis of relationship between financial and non-financial information, plausible relationships, identifying unusual circumstances. That is what analytical procedure. Okay? So first we will do risk assessment. Risk assessment, what we will do? We were appointed as an auditor. First day we went to the office. We went to the factory or that particular client place. Accountant, finance manager, they all visited. They are just explaining me what business they do, what products they deal with. And they took me to go down visit, factory visit, where finance department, they are just, they are just giving me a tour about the company. They are just giving me a company tour, complete tour about the company. And I'm understanding what they're doing, what this doing, what that employee is doing, what are all the processes company has, how the production happens, when the production gets completed, how long it will take for the production of raw material to finished good, how much company is maintaining in the inventory, where and all company has go downs, where and all company has factories. I am just understanding about the company fully. Almost 1 week I spend on understanding. Why am I understanding? In order to identify where things can go wrong. Where things can go wrong. What can go wrong? I am identifying what can go wrong in production, what can go wrong in inventory, what can go wrong in purchases, what can go wrong in sales. And they are explaining me how they purchase, what process they follow for purchase, what process they follow for sales. Just like that, a company cannot purchase. No, suppose in DMart, no, some suddenly stock is out. Can DMart, that store, whoever employs that, can take the money in the cashier, go to Big Bazaar and buy sugar and come and bring in the DMart? They can't. For every purchases, there is a process lead. Everyone has to follow that process. That entire processes are called as internal controls. What are they? Processes are called as what? Internal controls. Once our class is over, every door will be locked. That's the control. Why? Safeguarding of assets. What is the control purpose? Safeguarding of assets. Taking attendance, efficiency and effectiveness of operations, compliance with laws and regulations, prevention and detection of fraud and error, reliability in financial reporting. These are the 5 objectives of internal control, risk assessment chapter. Any process company follow, any procedure whatever the company follow, we call them as what? Internal controls. Now, these internal controls I will observe. These internal controls I will inquire. These internal controls I will see analytically, are they working, are they proper or not, is it a proper process or not. So by inquiring management, by discussing with various employees, by discussing with internal auditors, by observing what they are doing, by analytically thinking what they are doing, I will do risk assessment, I will do risk analysis. Then I will understand where and all high risk is there, where and all low risk is there. Accordingly, I will design my further audit procedure. Further audit procedure is nothing but nature, timing and extent of audit procedures. Nature, timing and extent of audit procedures, nothing but further audit procedure most of the times. Audit procedures, nature, either risk assessment, again either further audit. Again within that further audit, there are 2 nature of audit procedures within further audit. Compliance procedure, substantive procedure. Before I verify purchase invoice, all that, no, first I will see purchase process. First I will see purchase process. Exactly what process is the company established. Whether real purchases transactions are the following as per the established process or not, I will cross check. Now, when I'm verifying purchase process, no, I may find weaknesses in that. That weakness is called as deficiency in internal control. That weakness is called as what? Deficiency in internal control. So if at all I find any deficiency, if it is a significant deficiency, I will communicate it to top management. That is what 265 standard says. So like this, I will do analysis, then I will plan the audit. So once I completed risk assessment, I have to plan, no? First I will do risk assessment, then only I will develop my strategy, then only I will develop my audit plan, then only I will develop my audit program. So yes, I completed risk assessment now. Now I have to plan the audit. So and so company is there. So the company is there. So and so financial year. This is the date on which we are starting the audit. And expected closing date, so and so date we targeted originally. Actual completion date we will put. Now who are all doing? Myself, my manager, my senior articles, my junior articles, and some paid assistants I'm taking. This entire team is called as what? Engagement team. What is the nature of assignment? Statutory audit. Now first we have to do risk assessment procedure. Myself and my manager, we both will go for 7 days and understand the business. Once risk assessment is completed, first that we will do is opening balance verification, because 5-10 we should get evidence about opening balances. Who will do? My manager will do. 1 day is the time which is enough. He has to compare with the previous year balance sheet. Then transactions will verify for purchases, sales, payments, receipts, others. So who will verify? We have allocated work. How much time we have given the work? The status have to be updated here. As and when the work is completed, they have to once the work is started, in progress they should select. If nothing is selected here, the work is not yet started. If work is started, in progress. Work is completed, they should select completed. Likewise, assets, fixed assets, they should verify. Inventory. In fixed assets, what they should verify? See whether physical verification is going on, whether invoices and all are there, and CARO fixed asset register and all, you see that and all I told my team. So they will go and check all those points. Receivables, inventory, cash, payables, like that I have allocated team. Then statutory areas, GST compliance I will see, TDS compliance I will see, EPF, ESI, profession tax, customs duty. Then I will go and do analytical review of all the ledgers. Repairs and maintenance, is there any unusual transaction? Is there any unusual amounts of fines and penalties paid? Is there any unusual amount of purchases made during the year? Like that, I analyze each and every transaction. Is there any big amounts, exceptional transactions? That's called ledger review. Then overall audit review I will do. Once I do an overall audit review, once I see all my teams, they worked on so many things, no, they verified so many things, no, they gathered so many evidences and all, no, I will verify all of them. Where I will verify? In a summary meeting, audit summary meeting. There I will prepare audit summary memorandum. What I will prepare? I will prepare audit summary memorandum. In documentation chapter, you have a question, what is audit summary memorandum? There I will discuss. Then finally, once audit summary memorandum is over, management will discuss. I will sit, my senior manager, my senior articles, important team members and all will sit. Company team people also will sit. Sir, these are the issues we identified in the past 40 days. These are the issues. What is your answer? They will come back with resolution. They will resolve some items, they will not resolve some items. Finally, after that meeting is over, after some 1 or 2 meetings, then I will decide which opinion I will give. Then I will prepare a draft audit report. I will give it to the company. Draft audit report, not final audit report. Company will once again come back. Sir, you are qualifying, sir, you are giving adverse opinion. No. What mistake happened? You tell me. Okay, I will rectify in the financials. They went and rectified and back. Then I will give unqualified opinion if they rectified. Suppose if they don't rectify, I will give as it is final audit report. Clear? This is what exactly happens in audit. So this is what an audit plan. Once entire audit is over, this plan has to be signed. This plan has to be signed. Getting it? This plan has to be signed by entire team members. This plan we will document it. Whatever work we did, no, we will document it. This documentation will be in 2 ways. Hard copy documentation, soft copy documentation. What is it? Hard copy documentation, soft copy documentation. Some evidences, no, you get in hard copy, physical copies. What you should do, you should copy, you should keep it. You should also scan it and convert it into soft copy. This is compulsory now. Image processing we call it as, or scanning we call it as. All the hard copy documentation you should scan it and then convert it into a soft copy. Understood? This process is called as documentation. This process is nothing but we call it as what? Documentation. Now, if you go to any audit office, if you open their system server, client files will be there, soft copies. How the files will be there, how the client files and all will be there. Like suppose if you opened a server in audit office, the moment you click on the server, like system server, it will open, clients folder. Inside the clients folder, if you open, it will have companies folder, sole proprietors folder, firms folder, LLPs, trust, like that. Suppose you opened the company folder. Suppose you opened company folders. Inside that A limited, B limited, C limited, D limited, like that various company clients were there. Now B limited I opened. Stat audit folder is there, tax audit folder is there. Means for B limited we are doing 2 types of works. Stat audit and tax audit. You open stat audit. 2009-10 onwards the folders were there. 10, 11, 11, 12, like this. 22, 23 up to this folder is there. Okay, I opened 22, 23 folder. Inside that risk assessment folder is there. Transaction audit folder is there. Assets and liabilities audit folder is there. Again, there is another folder. Folder means you're able to imagine, right? Computer files folders. So again, ledger scrutiny folder is there. Then analytical procedures folder is there. Then summary meetings folder is there. Then deliverables folder is there. Finalization, some folder is there. Finalization. Okay. Risk assessment procedure folder I open. There are subfolders. Enquiries, how they inquired, through WhatsApp conversations, through mails and all they inquired. Some inquiries are orally they made. So whatever oral inquiries they made, they drafted it and then documented. Then they had observations, photo marks, photos in WhatsApp, in phone itself, they took photos of various issues and they documented here. Then analytical process, logically whatever idea they got initially, that workings and all were there. Transaction audit, inside that again, purchases folder is there, sales folder is there, expense folder is there, receipt folder is there, some other expenses, outstanding expenses folder is there. Purchases folder we open. Purchases folder again has purchase register is there, means original purchase register as per the company. Purchase order folder is there. Purchase order file is there. Purchase register file, purchase order file. Then I will do sampling basis, that sample selection folder is there. What are all the items I selected as a sample? What methodology I followed for sample selection? That and all workings are there inside this. Inside this is Excel sheet. If I open that sample workings sheet, like so and so date, so and so purchase voucher, so and so amount, so and so party. Now right side my remark is there. My article assistant remarks what remarks he found in that particular transaction, because on a sample basis only they do, right? Yes or no? Like that sales, expenses, receipts, like that so many were there. Now corresponding to these soft copies, various hard copy evidences are also there. Xerox copies, PAN copy, GST returns, TDS returns, hard copies and all were also there. That and all were there in hard copy folder. Now tell me, you see how I arranged this entire working paper neatly, yes or no? This process of arrangement is called as assembly. What is this called as? Assembly of audit file. Documentation is nothing but what? Audit file. Here audit file I'm maintaining in soft copy, and I'm also maintaining in hard copy. Even the hard copy working capital box file will be there. Box kind of file will be there for files, folders. So you open, there will be arranged in a particular order. Sequence will be there. Sequence, in a particular sequence they arrange all the papers. They just like that zigzag manner they won't arrange. In a sequence they will arrange. So this process is called as what? Assembly of audit file. Are you getting it? Now this assembly has to be completed within how many days? 60 days from the date of audit report. Once audit report is given, within 60 days assemble the files, assemble the audit file. Which file? Hard copy as well as soft copy. Tomorrow you completed articles, you did this audit, you left, somebody else will come. 7 years they should retain. 8 years under Companies Act should be retained. 6 years it should be retained as per income tax. Tomorrow some client case is going on. Like this auditor was asked to give some information. If you arrange it in zigzag manner, how will somebody trace? That's why assembly is important. Understood? Now what is the purpose of documentation here? Why are we documenting all this? To prove that we do audit as per standards on auditing. To prove that I have acted diligently, carefully, skillfully. Sir, no. This is what objective of documentation. You see the question? What is the purpose of documentation? It will be helpful for next years. Okay, so all that we will be discussing in the next session. Until now, understood? Got some idea on documentation? That's it. So in the next session, we will discuss audit documentation. In the next session, I will cover in the next session documentation and evidence chapter. That will also be completed. That's it. Okay. Yeah, carry on. So in the previous session, we have started this concept called audit documentation, and we understood how auditors maintain documentation. How we maintain documentation in in our auditor's office generally. And we maintain documentation in two formats. One is in soft copy format and hard copy format. Is the output clear for you? No disturbance? Yeah. So we maintain it in hard copy as well as soft copy, both the formats. And we have seen, I have explained you briefly how we generally plan the audit and conduct the audit, and how the documentation we will maintain briefly. Now let's understand the standard 230. What it exactly talks about documentation related requirements. Now, what is audit documentation? Audit documentation refers to record of audit procedures performed. Whatever verification procedures you perform, that we are recording, that we are storing. Nothing but what you document, evidences you document. Whatever information you are collecting, that you document. I verified the TDS payments, TDS payments every month. Challans, whatever I verify or document. My workings I will document. GST workings I will document. GST challans, whatever is paid I will document. Purchases I will document. Everything, whatever I verify, I document. It may be hard copy or soft copy. But most of the hard copy documentation, we convert it into soft copy also. So audit documentation refers to record of audit procedures performed, evidence obtained, conclusions auditor has reached. Correct? So whatever evidence you obtain, whatever conclusions you reached, everything will be documented. And this documentation is also called as working papers, work papers. So anyway it can be referred as. Documentation is also called as what? Working papers. Actually, the process of recording the evidence gathered, the process of recording, evidences collected, conclusions, is that process name is called as documentation. Once you document, you will have this file, right? Soft copy, all that. That is called as audit file. Audit file is a result of documentation. Understood? Audit file is a result of documentation. Yes. Just a minute. So audit documentation is nothing but process of recording evidences collected, whatever procedures that we perform, that is what documentation. And the result of documentation is what? Audit file. This audit file may be in electronic form or in digital form. So let us see simultaneously the definition of audit file also. What is audit file? It is nothing but one or more folders or some other storage media in physical or electronic form that comprises documentation. Records that comprise documentation of whatever we collected, that is called as what? Audit documentation. Correct, Ra? So there, that is audit file. This is process is called as documentation. What is the objective of documentation? Tell me, what is the objective? It is a sufficient and appropriate record for the basis of auditor's report. It's a basis for auditor's report. Whatever auditor's opinion is there, further the basis is what? Documentation. Tomorrow, how you performed the audit? What is the proof that you executed the audit correctly? The only proof is this documentation, and it's an evidence that audit was planned and performed in accordance with the standards and legal and regulatory requirements. Audit documentation serves as an evidence that the audit was properly planned and performed. What is the nature of documentation? Nature of documentation is nothing but, again, once again, objective. Like, why documentation? What is its nature? What is its characteristic? Its characteristics very simple. It's a basis for conclusion about overall objectives of the auditor, and it is an evidence that audit was planned and performed as per the auditing standards. Yeah. So that's the nature of documentation. What is the purpose of documentation? Why? What are the benefits of documentation? It will help the team member to plan and perform the audit. Audit documentation, because whatever we do, whatever procedure we do, we document it. Our discussions about the audit, planning about the audit, strategies about the audit, everything we document. So the documentation helps the team to better perform the audit, and it helps the team to direct and supervise work. Whatever, how the team is working, who is doing which work, which team member is doing what work they completed. So reviewing that work, supervising them, documentation helps. And it of course makes the team members accountable for the work performed. Documentation makes the team accountable, because once they completed the work, they have to save all their workings. Automatically, since the workings are saved, they will have a fear that, okay, since they are saved, even if at all I did something wrong, it will be accountable. I need to answer them. So that's why they will do carefully. If at all there is no documentation process of work performed, people will do carelessly. And it will also provide a significance to future audits, especially when we are doing multiple years audits. What exactly in this company we did? What exactly in this company we have to do? New team members came. How do they know? They will see previous year documentation. So documentation of current year helps in the future. Documentation helps for conducting quality reviews. Documentation helps in conducting quality reviews. We have a concept called engagement quality control review in quality control standard. What is a quality control review? Somebody will sit and verify whether you performed audit as per standards, whether you properly planned and performed the audit, all the requirements of standards complied or not. So they will have to check it. They want to check that. So how they will be checking it? By verifying your documentation. And even for external inspections, for example, peer review, quality review, NFRA audit quality review, these are all external inspections. Some outside regulatory authorities, when they want to verify whether you did audit properly or not, which will help? Only documentation will help. Correct? So this is the purpose of documentation. What is the form of documentation? Like, in which format? What is the form, content and extent of documentation? Like, what should be the format of documentation? It depends upon the evidences collected by us. It depends upon the client also. The form, content and extent of documentation is not something predetermined. It depends upon the client we are working, because some clients maintain completely electronic data. Some clients maintain completely physical records. So the form of documentation, whatever that we are maintaining, it is not predetermined. It depends on so many factors. So what is the manner of documentation? Ultimately, see, what is the form, content and extent of documentation? Nothing but what should be the manner of documentation. Ultimately, you should document in such a way that After, see, obviously articles and all they leave once they completed the work. They, they will obviously, leave to another firm, or probably they'll go for industry something. But within next 7 years, if somebody want to verify your documentation to see whether you're working properly or not, whether you have worked on the audit properly or not, they must understand how you planned the audit, how you performed the audit, what conclusions you reached, what opinion you gave. Entire that other person should understand just by looking at your documentation. Your documentation shall be in such a way that it is self-explanatory. Correctly? You cannot maintain documentation in a zigzag manner. Your documentation should be in such a way that it is self-explanatory. An independent, experienced auditor, somebody who is an experienced auditor, by looking at your documentation, he should tell, without you explaining, he should tell how you planned the audit, how you performed the audit, what evidences you collected, what conclusions you have taken, what decisions you have reached, what opinion you have expressed. Just by looking at your documentation, somebody should be able to tell this. So, manner of documentation, the auditor shall prepare documentation that is enabling an experienced auditor having no previous connection with audit. A third party who has audit knowledge, but he didn't work in this audit, who has no connection with this audit, shall understand nature, timing and extent of audit procedures performed, result of audit procedures performed, and evidence obtained. So how you performed the audit, what are the results that you obtained, what conclusions you reached, all that he should understand. In such a way you should maintain documentation. And he should also understand significant matters arising during the audit, conclusions reached, and professional judgments made in reaching those conclusions. So an experienced auditor should understand how you planned the audit, what procedures you perform, what are the significant issues that got in the audit, and how you take decisions on those matters, how you concluded those matters. So all that he should understand. What are significant matters? What are significant matters? SA 260 talks about that. What are all significant matters? SA 260 talks about that. Significant matters arising in audit. Like that we will be discussing in 260 standard. Who is an experienced auditor? A person who has a reasonable knowledge of applicable framework, accounting standard, auditing standards, knowledge of client business. But remember, he is not part of your team. Who conducted this audit, who prepared this documentation, that fellow is not part of it. But you should prepare documentation in such a way that an experienced auditor, by looking at your documentation, should understand how you planned and performed the audit. Further, what should be the documentation of nature, timing and extent of audit procedure. Further, in documenting NTE, the auditor shall record what are all the tests that performed, who performed it, who verified it, what are the significant matters, what are the differences and inconsistencies if at all identified, and how it was resolved. What you should document? You should document. We always tell in the audit, nature, timing, extent of audit. What is nature, timing, extent of audit? Nature of audit means, are you doing compliance procedure? Are you doing substantive procedure? Are you verifying past data? Are you verifying future data? It depends on so many. Nature of audit procedure is a very wider term. Timing of audit procedure. How many days you are doing? When you are doing? Both are covered. Timing includes both. It's not just when. Nature, timing and extent of audit procedure. Extent means what? Are you covering 100% of the transactions? Are you covering sample? For some items, we cover 100%. For some items, we cover only sample. So, the documentation should cover all the following elements. In documenting nature and timing, the auditor shall record. They'll ask you a question on this, 4 marks question. What are the points the auditor should consider? What are the points the auditor should document, especially regarding nature, timing and extent of audit procedures? You should document what tests that you performed, who reviewed it, what are the significant issues that are arisen in the work, whether any inconsistencies, like the auditors, sometimes they identify some inconsistencies, some exceptions. That exceptions has to be documented. How they were resolved also should be documented. One of the example of inconsistency is exception. Exception is nothing but, suppose I sent external confirmation to third party. I sent, sir, in our books of accounts 10 lakhs is the outstanding balance. What is there in your books of accounts? Please reply. They said 8 lakhs. They said 8 lakhs. This is called inconsistency, not a misstatement. This is called as what? Inconsistency. Then we will investigate. Whenever inconsistency is there, whenever there is an exception, we investigate whether that resulted into a material misstatement or not. Now, what are the factors that affect documentation? The form, content and extent of documentation is affected by various factors. in which format I have to document, what are all I have to document. All that is affected by various factors. One of the factor is size and complexity of the entity. If the business is very complex, entity is very big, your documentation will be very big. And nature of audit procedures performed. What type of procedures you perform? Have you performed test of controls? What you perform? Like substantive procedures. It depending upon what you are performing the most. Depending upon that, the content of documentation will affect. Nature, form and content. Form, content and extent. In which form the documentation should be, what should be documented, to what extent it should be documented. It depends upon so many factors. Suppose, if a company is completely automated environment, the documentation that is completely electronic. If the company is having a manual and automated environment, then documentation will be mixed. If a company is having completely manual environment, we also maintain documentation in manual. Risks of MMS identified. Higher the risks you identified, higher the audit procedures you perform, higher the documentation. Significance of the evidence obtained. Sometimes, some documents, we just see and give it back to the management. We don't document it because we felt it is not significant. Sometimes some documents, we will take a copy and then document. Significance of the information. That is also one of the important element. Very simple. Like, what are the factors for you to take running notes? If I ask you this question and give me an answer, it depends on so many things, right? Significance of the point that you listened. Correct? And it depends upon the risk or importance of that point. So many, like if at all I ask you, what you'll be writing running notes, right? Some of you, which I tell always no to strict no to running notes basically. But if at all you're maintaining running notes, if I ask you a question, give me a 4 marks weightage. What are the factors that affect notes taking? How to write that? That is what exactly auditing subject is like. Every time they ask you, what are the factors that affect form, content and extent of documentation? Nothing but what is the question, on what basis you decide so and so thing has to be documented? On what basis you decide in which format you will document? It depends upon not my interest. It depends upon other parties also. Size of the entity, complexity of the entity, risk involved, significance of the information that I am getting in that particular client, extent of exceptions identified. Exceptions means what? Differences, inconsistencies. What is it called as? Inconsistencies. Need to document a conclusion. Is there any necessity for me to document a conclusion? Sometimes, I will be verifying some accounting estimates and I am concluding that the estimate is reasonable. I am concluding that useful life is reasonable. Now, how I concluded useful life is reasonable, that also I will document. And audit methodology and tools. It also depends upon audit methodology and tools. If at all you are using automated environment, if at all you are doing audit in an automated environment where completely systems are automated, you're also doing audit digitally, the format of documentation varies. So any 4 points you have to write in this. This itself can be asked as a 4 marks question. And purpose of documentation can be asked as a 4 marks question. Next. What are the documentation examples? Like in example, they'll give you, write about meaning of documentation and objective of documentation. Give you examples. 4 marks question. Examples means what? What all I'll document. Whatever queries I am issuing, that I will document. Whatever evidences I am gathering, that I will document. External confirmations I will document. Audit program I will document. Audit program plan strategy I will document. My analysis I will document. Issues memorandum means queries memorandum I will document. Summaries of significant matters I will document. Letters of confirmation, letters of representation, engagement letter, all that I will document. Checklist I will document. Correspondence means the conversation I had, the communication I made with the management through emails, WhatsApp, all that communication I will document. Whatever things various standards on auditing says me that you have to document, all those things I will document. These are all examples of documentation. Suppose I am doing purchases audit. In purchases, one bill I found where that was completely entered wrongly. Then I told management and they rectified it later. That bill I will document. That is an example of documentation. What are the examples of documentation? Nothing but whatever you are collecting and keeping in a computer soft copy or hard copy in the file, they are the examples of documentation. And these papers, these files, either they may be belonging to planning process, analysis or issues memorandum, summary, significant matters or representations or confirmations, correspondence, anything it can be related to. The documentation, what you are doing can be related to any of this. Correct? Next. Can an auditor include copies of entities record as a part of documentation? Can an auditor include copies of entity records. Nothing but, can I take accounting record as a documentation? Absolutely, no problem. The auditor may include copies of entities records. For example, some big contract agreements and all is there. Loan agreements is there. You want to take a Xerox and then keep it with you. Your wish, you can document. But tell me, audit documentation is not a substitute for accounting records. Audit documentation is not a substitute for accounting records. Obviously, what are they trying to tell? Just because entity already has entire data, that doesn't mean you are exempted from documentation. Like some auditors, they may say, why should I document, sir? Whatever I verified, it is there in the company itself. I can go and simply verify, whenever I want. Why should I keep a copy of it? Audit documentation is not a substitute for entities accounting. That is their record. Tomorrow, for you, for 7 years, you have to retain, right? If some regulatory authority came for inspection, at that time you and that client are not having good bonding, how will you? So better you maintain always your own documentation. What audit documentation does not include? The auditor need not include the following items. What are they? Superseded drafts. What is superseded draft? Rough workings will be there, na? So some rough working is there. Then again I showed it to the management. Again, once again we redrafted the workings. Now first rough working is there. Why should I document? I can leave it. That is called superseded document. Suppose I prepare a report. I prepared some letter, external confirmation. Some mistakes are there. Now I throw that and I rectified mistakes and I again took a printout of the new letter. Again in that some mistake is there. I removed it. Again I took a printout with corrections. Now tell me, all the three should I retain? Whenever I print a new letter, it superseded the old letter. They are called as what? Superseded documents. Incomplete or preliminary thinking. Some rough workings that you are doing, you need not document. Previous copies of documents which are corrected for typological errors, you need not document. Duplicates of the documents, you need not document. Understood? Common sense. Entire documentation chapter is what? Common sense. Now, timely preparation and assembly of documentation. Timely preparation and assembly of documentation. What documentation does not include? A 3 marks question is possible. Now tell me, when should we document? Is it better for us to document as and when the work is completed, that area, or shall we sit at the last of the audit and document at the time? First method. As and when the work is completed, we should always document immediately, then and there, instead of documenting at the end of the audit. Why? Timely preparation of documentation. Because I worked 40 days back, I started purchases work. Today I am doing something else. Now today if I have to think about what are all important issues I found in purchases, and today if I sit for documentation, that will not be effective. So the moment when I do purchase audit, at the time itself all the issues related to purchases, whatever I felt I have to store it, I should document then and there. So the auditor shall prepare documentation on a timely basis. Preparing audit documentation on timely basis helps to enhance the quality of audit. Documentation prepared after the work is performed is less accurate than the documentation prepared at the time when the work is performed. So logical. So this itself can be asked as a 3 marks question. Write about timely preparation of documentation. Then further, once audit is completed, you are preparing timely the documentation. Whatever purchases work you are doing, at the time itself you are gathering all the documentation. Whenever you are doing sales audit, you are gathering entire documentation at that time itself. Whatever works you are doing, your team member is doing. As a partner, you told your team members, please document as and when that work is completed, and they are all following. Now after that audit is over, like we all sat for summary meeting, summary is discussed, conclusions reached, opinion also decided, audit report is also given. Now these many staff, almost 20 members were their engagement team, very big listed entity. They all gathered so many files, so many folders, so many copies, so many physical hard copies, so many folders and all were there, so many files were there. Every file is there in their own laptops. Now one day we should sit and we should assemble it neatly. What you did first day, what you did second day, what you did third day, what you did fourth day. So let us assemble it clearly. Why we need to assemble it? See, to retrieve the information, structured assembly is required. To retrieve the information, very simple. Assembly means what? Assembly of audit file. Suppose this book is there. When I'm preparing this book, some 350 pages is there. If I follow a particular format, all documentation related questions should come in one chapter. All risk assessment questions should come in one chapter. All so and so chapter related questions should come in the same chapter. If I zigzagly arrange, tomorrow if I have to search which question is here, it takes lots of time. Retrieval takes time. You are documenting everything. The book contains every question, but where it is containing. Structuring should be there, right? Assembly should be there, right? So assembly of documentation is important for a better representation, for a better retrieval of the data. So what is assembly? The auditor shall assemble the audit documentation. Audit documentation, you have to assemble it. Assembly means neatly, properly, in a structured manner. Now tell me, assembling process is there, right? Is this an audit procedure? I am assembling the audit file. So no. Is this an audit procedure? It is not an audit related procedure. It is an administrative process. What is it? Administrative process. Audit procedure means what? When I am verifying some client's information, when I am verifying books of accounts, when I am verifying financial statements with a view to obtain some evidence, with a view to obtain some information, that is called as what? Audit procedure. This is not an audit procedure. So audit documentation is an administrative process. Generally it is done on a timely basis after the date of audit report. Within what time you should assemble this? Standard on quality control says please assemble it within 60 days. Again, with after 60 days now you will forget, you will lose grip on this client audit, and again you will be focusing on some other audits, you will leave this completely. Please arrange the files, whatever working papers you collected, please arrange them in a proper order, assemble them in a proper order within 60 days from the date on which audit report is given. Next, and remember, this assembly process is a administrative process. The completion of assembly of final audit file after date of audit report is an administrative process, does not involve new procedures or drawing new conclusions. I am not doing any audit here. It is just an administrative. I will not be taking any decisions now. I will not be taking any audit procedures now. Nothing. They are administrative. The assembly process is purely administrative. What I will do in this assembly, I will discard some superseded documents. If some useless documents, I will throw it. I will cross-reference working papers. In computer, some work is there, so and so folder. Here, some paper is a related paper. I will be cross-referencing it, sequencing it. I will be cross-referencing, sorting, collating, all that sequencing, signing off on completion checklist. Like as and when the work is completed, that respective team member has to come and sign that. Documenting evidence that auditor has obtained and discussed and agreed with relevant members before the date of audit report. Whatever evidences that we have gathered now before the date of audit report, all that we will store it. So this process is called as what? Assembly process. Now, how long you have to retain? 7 years from the date of audit report or the date of group auditors report, whichever is later. Audit documentation shall be retained for how many years? 7 years. Audit document, the retention period is ordinarily no shorter than 7 years from the date of audit report or later in case of group audit report. Nothing but date of audit report or date of group audit report, whichever is later. Suppose you are giving audit report on standalone financials and audit report on consolidated financials. Generally, first which you will give? Audit report on standalone. Only once the standalone financial statements are finalized, consolidation can be prepared. Now, if consolidated financials are there, standalone financials are there, which date you will consider? Consolidated financial statements audit report date you will consider. From that date it is 7 years. Suppose you are doing a branch audit and my branch financial statements, no, approval was so and so date. I gave branch audit report on so and so date. Main auditor is also giving audit report, right? He is giving audit report on so and so date. From which date I should consider 7 years? Main auditor's report date. Clear? Who is the owner for documentation? It is property of the auditor. Audit documentation is property of the auditor unless otherwise specified by law. If the law says something else, that you are not the owner, then you are not the owner. Otherwise, by default, if the law is silent, who is the owner for documentation, audit documentation? Auditor himself. But can auditor provide documentation to the client? Yes, that is his choice. But can a client demand the auditor? No. Sir, you have taken printout on my paper only, so it is my property. No. Paper, if you want, I'll reimburse. The content on the paper is mine. Yes or no? Further, we have to document significant matters and related professional judgment. We should document what? Significant matters that were arising in audit. We should document that. We should also document professional judgment. Like you see, documentation related to professional judgment. Very important question in this chapter. These two questions are very important. These two parts, entire 6th question is very important. And even 7th question is also very, very important. In this chapter, question number 6 and question number 7. These two are extremely important. That doesn't mean remaining you should not study. I told you 3/4 strategy means entire chapter you have to study. Don't leave at all. Because documentation chapter, either MCQ is possible or descriptive question is possible. Sometimes both they will be asking. Now, what do you mean by documentation of significant matters? First of all, whether a particular matter is significant or not, it requires an analysis of facts and circumstances, correct? Depending upon the given facts and circumstances, we should analyze whether it is significant or not. That is what they are saying. Judging significance of a matter requires an objective, unbiased analysis of the facts and circumstances. What is significant in one client may not be significant in another client. So depending upon facts and circumstances, you should analyze whether it's a significant matter or not. Generally, when do I say that matter is a significant matter? If it is resulting in modification to the opinion. Suppose if I find some issue, suppose if I find some misstatement, because of that I feel like I have to modify the financial statements, then that matter is a significant matter or significant issue, correct? So findings that could result in modification to audit opinion or inclusion of emphasis of matter paragraph, any reason because of which you felt to modify the opinion, or any reason because of which you want to include emphasis of matter paragraph, even other matter paragraph, or even key audit matter, they all come under what? Significant matters. Or auditor felt significant difficulty in applying audit procedure. Auditor felt significant difficulty in applying some audit procedure. That could be a significant matter. I mean, auditor is feeling significant difficulty. For example, by default, client must have completed entire GST reconciliation. He didn't do at all. The client is not performing any background calculations, nothing. He is just paying tax and he is not keeping any records properly. That's a significant matter. Why? Because client not preparing all the reconciliation, I have to sit and prepare. It's a difficulty for me. And the result of audit procedures indicating financials are materially misstated. This could be a significant matter. When you are performing audit procedure, you found evidence that financials are materially misstated. That could be a significant matter. Or when you are performing audit procedure, when you are verifying, you understood that your previous assessment of risk has to be revised. Originally you thought risk is low, but when you are actually verifying that particular class of transactions, you found that here risk is high. Means you need to revise your risk assessment, right? Whatever circumstance that necessitated you to revise the risk assessment, that could be a significant matter. All the significant matters you should document. How do you check what are the examples of significant matters? Any matter that give rise to significant risk. Any issues because of which you felt there is a significant risk, or any issue because of which financials are materially misstated, or any procedure or any information you got that indicate you need to revise risk assessment procedure, or circumstances where auditor faced significant difficulty, or findings where it results in modification of opinion or inclusion of emphasis of matter paragraph. All these issues are significant matters. By the way, whether these are significant matters or not, you need to interpret them based on facts and circumstances. That's it. So that is what documentation of significant matters means. So how will I explain documentation of significant matters? You see, how to revise, I'm telling you now. First you need to learn like this. Then you need to summarize. Then you need to revise. Many ask me how to remember this audit subject. We are unable to remember. There is no rule for this how to remember. First, focus on how to understand the context better. Focus on how to understand the context exactly. Correctly you should understand. Focus on that understanding part first. 95% of the student, I can say, they never understand what they're reading in audit. I don't know how many of you read this question earlier. Documentation of significant matters. How they articulated, you see. First point, what they articulated, whether a particular issue is a significant or not, is a matter of analysis of facts and circumstances. Correct? So they are not directly jumping into how to document significant matters. First they are telling you when it will be a significant matter. Then they are giving you examples of significant matters. Examples, what are they? Any matter where significant risk is there. Any issue where you felt significant difficulty. Any issues where you performed some verification, right? The result indicates some misstatement in financials. Or any result of audit procedure that indicates your risk assessment is going to be revised. or circumstances that indicating modification of opinion or inclusion of emphasis of matter paragraph, or circumstances where auditor is finding difficulty. All these are examples of significant matters. All these points, they are covered in 260 also. Significant matters. The auditor has to communicate significant matters to those charged with governance as per SA 260. This is context based understanding. You revise like this. Generally what we do is we read once, we understood or not, we again read once again without trying to understand. Then we leave that and proceed to the next topic without even understanding. Then how do you remember? This is one of the complex topic. This one, and even documentation related to professional judgment is also one of the complex topics. These two are complex topics in this chapter. 99% they don't understand this. They don't understand why they were discussed like that, how they were discussed. Observe what they are discussing. Understood? Next, documentation of professional judgment. What is it? Documentation of professional judgment. How will I document professional judgment? For example, I'm explaining you the class and I'm seeing your facial expressions and all, and I'm judging accordingly whether you understood it or not. How did I judge whether you understood or not? How should I document? How complex, no? How should we document judgments? How we should document judgments? Very simple. An important factor in determining the form, content, and extent of documentation of significant matter is professional judgment exercised in performing the work and evaluating the result. This alone I'm explaining in detail. An important factor in deciding the form, content, and extent of documentation of significant matter is the extent of judgment exercise. You look at the question, write about documentation of significant matters and related significant professional judgments. First of all, how should you document significant matters? Okay, I decided to document significant matters. You understood that they are very significant, right? On what basis? How do you document the judgment? So documentation of significant matters and related professional judgment. Clear? They both are interlinked. But in exam, they'll ask you any one only. Write about documentation related to significant matters. Write about documentation of professional judgment related to significant matters. That they will ask. Now, one of the important factor in deciding documentation of significant matter is the professional judgment we exercise. If the judgment is very high in that, judgment is high means what? You see, purchases, whether it is right or not, purchase invoice will be there, e-way bill will be there, transport challan will be there, purchase order is there, amount is there, everything. No judgment required. Here no judgment, it's an actual transaction. Depreciation, is it right amount or not? It is based on judgment. Because if somebody asks me what is the useful life of a particular mission for this company, I will give some number. If I call somebody else and explain this facts and circumstance, he will give some other number. Third person, he will give another number. Because useful life is highly subjective. When it is highly subjective, it is judgmental. If the judgment is significant, if the judgment is what? Significant level. Significant level means what? The estimates used in that, assumptions used in that judgment, no. They are very debatable. They are highly fluctuating. Are you getting it? That is even more challenging. Documenting professional judgments related to significant matters is even more challenging. Now you see, documentation of professional judgment serves to explain auditor's conclusions and reinforce the quality of judgment. Suppose, dear Mr. Auditor, on what basis you agreed Reliance Industries life, plant and machinery life is increased from 30 to 50 years, right? On what basis you agreed to it? That time I worked on audit. At that time I saw everything, but I didn't document on what basis I agreed. I documented life is revised to so and so because it's a significant matter, and I documented what are the consequences, all that. But whether the 30 to 50 it is increased, no, is that right or not? I'm unable to. I verified all that, but I didn't document. Today when somebody coming and asking me how did you conclude it is reasonable, I don't have answer. So my analysis behind acceptance for change in accounting estimate, which involves significant judgment, that analysis also should be documented. So in the following cases, you see, the auditor shall document his use of professional judgment. Wherever you used professional judgment, especially in the following cases, you have to compulsorily document. What are they? If such a judgment is relating to matters which are related to significant matters. In the following cases, your professional judgment process shall be documented. Professional judgment process, how will you document? Okay, you verified useful life from so and so to so and so, right? You saw the assumptions, right? That assumptions you document. On what assumptions the life of machinery is revised from 30 years to 50 years. How do you decide that this assumption is reasonable? Some expert and all gave a report. You also saw the remaining petroleum companies across the world. They also have revised like this in the previous circumstances, useful life from so and so to so and so. That information you use, right, to decide whether this action is correct or not, that information you document. So how do I document? See, I will be deciding based on some facts and circumstances, right? Just to document those facts and circumstances and write there how this particular fact you analyzed, how this circumstance you analyzed, that you document. That itself is nothing but documentation of professional judgment. So what is the rationale for auditor's conclusion? Where a requirement means probably accounting standard requirement or auditing standard requirement, whatever it is. A requirement provides that the auditor shall consider certain information or factors, and that consideration is significant in the context of the particular engagement. What is the auditor's rationale? What is the rationale for auditor's conclusion? When an accounting standard or auditing standard provides that auditor shall consider some information. Suppose when there is a change in useful life, the accounting standard is asking you, how useful life can be changed, how useful life from so and so to so and so is revised, on what basis it would have been revised. It would have been revised based on some expert's opinion. It would have been revised based on industry average. It was revised based on so many facts and circumstances. That facts and circumstances you document. Second one, on what basis you concluded that the reasonableness of subject to judgment. Right now I told revised useful life has been revised from so and so to so and so, right? On what basis you felt this useful life is reasonable? On what basis you felt this useful life is reasonable? Related evidences you document. The basis for auditor's conclusions about authenticity of a document. The basis for auditor's conclusions about authenticity of the document, this further point is ignored. The basis for auditor's conclusion about authenticity of a document. Originally, when the Reliance company has revised from 30 years to 50 years, you felt that this is completely wrong. You felt that this is completely wrong. Later, based on some documentations, yes, based on right documentations, original documents and all, after they showed expert workings and all, they showed, you convinced that you should document. Clear? So these are the points that you must document related to professional judgment. So one of the important factor in determining documentation of significant matter is professional judgment exercise. To what extent? Is it a limited judgment or high judgment? If it is a high judgment, high uncertainty is involved. If it is high, means significant judgment. Suppose in this case, Reliance is having 4 lakh crore worth of plant and machinery. The useful life is increased from 30 to 50 years. Obviously, high amount of judgment would have been involved in this. High amount of assumptions would have been involved in this. Suddenly, useful life is increased by double. That to the value of plant and machinery is 4 lakh crore, significant. And why you have to document? It will serve to explain my conclusion and to reinforce the quality of judgment. It will help me to prove whether my judgment is qualitative or not. And in the following cases, auditor shall document his professional judgment relating to matters that are related to significant. Directly you can say, in the following cases, the auditor shall document his use of professional judgment if that judgment is related to significant matters. What? First point, what is the auditor's conclusion? What is the auditor's conclusion? When a requirement provides that auditor shall consider so and so factors in the context of particular engagement, in the context of a particular work, what factors you should consider as per accounting standard to decide a judgment? All those factors you document. Second, what is the basis that, on what basis you understood so and so's judgment is reasonable? On what basis you understood so and so judgment is reasonable? That, see, for useful life, we need to verify for sure certain points. What are they? Point number 1, I should verify who did this revision, who has taken this decision. 2, some engineer would have certified the fitment certificate. Some engineer would have given fitment certificate for this plant and machinery. Some environmental authority or some authority, some legal and regulatory authority, somebody would have been there. Some engineer, somebody, they would have given that this useful life is, the asset is useful from 30 years to 50 years, something they would have said. So that report you document. What are all the information and factors that are useful for particular judgment, that you document. Now, information you documented. How did you analyze this information and concluded that it is reasonable? Some workings will be there now, that you document. Finally, the auditor's basis for conclusions on authenticity of the document. Now, above you're documenting expert report, engineer report, all that. How do you think they are genuine? On what basis you felt that they are genuine? Document. Sir, this so-and-so expert report is given by so-and-so particular engineer who is governed by Engineering Institute of India. So he is having a membership number. Same like we have a UDIN number portal, they also have some unique identification number. Based on that, I concluded that the document is genuine. What is the proof that whatever documents you used for professional judgment, how far the documents are genuine, on what basis you concluded that they are genuine, that also you document. Clear? Indirectly, whatever significant matter is there, inside that if any judgment is involved, what is the information used for that judgment? Documented. On what basis you concluded that this judgment is reasonable, means analysis you should document. How do you know these documents are genuine? That analysis you should document. This is called summarization. This is called summarization and revision. If you understand like this and once again you read later, you will remember. Blindly without understanding, without interpreting, if you keep on reading it, 10 times reading is equal to 10 times writing something, all that, they don't work. Clear? Then finally, audit summary memorandum. Generally for big audits, issues will be so many. 20-30 members of us are working. Different areas we are working. Now, every one of them will have some issues. Some mistakes or some issues they would have found. Some observations they will be having. Some queries they will be having. All the queries of all these 20-30 members, we will summarize it and filter it, so that this summary will be discussed with the top management and resolved it before final audit report is issued. Now, that summary, whatever we are preparing, that is called as what? Summary memorandum. Generally, all the significant matters will come in summary memorandum. See, the auditor may consider it helpful to prepare and retain as a part of documentation a summary that describes significant matters identified and how they were addressed. What are all the significant matters that we identified in audit by multiple team members? That can be documented into a small summary. Such a summary will facilitate review and inspection of documentation, particularly for large and complex audit. So preparation of such a summary will help the auditor to better consider significant issues. It also helps the auditor whether is there any individual standard objective that cannot achieve, that would prevent, that's not required. That's the third point. Only first 2 points are enough. 3 marks question, it is important. 3 marks question, it is important. Clear? All of you? That's it. Documentation chapter is over. Easy or not?